Start in node 1 and work backwards today because the service module will be deep in the throes of cabling for the Meme Dwa. So we'll start there and then we'll move to the front of the station. In node 1, you can see here our galley table is set up, and there's two straps right here holding it rigidly and bungees down on the bottom holding it a little bit more springily, and it's in its half folded configuration. It folds up against the side there flat, and it folds out across the node to accommodate everybody. The hatch, as you can see, is unimpeded by the table, and a quick circumferential view of the hatch, which I think was asked for. And PMA1, we have started to burn down a lot of the supplies here, and it's actually looking pretty good, believe it or not, that narrow tunnel. And here we go now on to the FGB. Now I'll make a note that Gennady has just gone to Herculean efforts to clean up the FGB, stow things, get rid of things, and I would say that it's not looked better than this for an awfully long time. We had to add another layer here for the EVAs and put other Orlon suits up here. These, of course, are now back in the SO Adin, and the FGB is looking great. It's still a huge amount of stowage, and anything stored in plane 1 is very difficult to access. There was a question about the Potok location in the FGB. Here it is. It's been moved in a very convenient location after the restow activities after the EVAs. And down here we have, of course, several Yedeves, disassembled KTOs. And a quick look down at the docking compartment. There are several Orlons down there, but the way they're stowed, it's actually very convenient and still a usable volume down there. So just packing is everything, and of course our Soyuz 18S is down there. And moving into the service module, Gennady and Roman are hard at work photographing Europe. And the service module is looking very clean these days.
You are paying our compliment, Mike.
Absolutely right.
Always true, always compliment.
Now moving back forward through the service module, again there's been really major efforts to clean things up in here, and the service module is a very clean module right now. The galley table, we take breakfast here and lunch here typically, and reserve dinner for the US segment. And service module walls, planes 2 and 4, have been massively cleaned and tidied. And we'll go ahead and move back forward now. Here again you get a view of the FGB and how much flyway there is now compared to what there used to be. This is the hygiene station, which is something all the crew members used at first. Now just Gennady and Roman are using this, and the US segment guys are pretty much using the WHC. And this is working out fairly well. And of course the FGB, and down here is the 19S Soyuz down in the depths. Coming out again through the PMA, and the light at the end of the tunnel. And now we'll try to pay particular attention to stowage areas. And in particular, this is the, there we go, the Node 1 Nader hatch area. We still have leftover TVIS items in here from the maintenance that we did. And then looking starboard along the hatch area is a collection of CWCs. And of course, behind the A-red, the port hatch, pretty much nothing is stowed there because of the dynamic envelope of the A-red. And let's take a look overhead. So the zenith hatch area, we had done a lot of pre-staging of trash here before the last progress. And this area is, of course, I think slated for stowage for 17A. There is quite a bit of potential stowage area up here. Just as a note, when we do stow a lot of things up here, we lose some of the ventilation, we lose some of the lighting, and where we have to be careful again with the A-red dynamic envelope, but it does swallow a lot of cargo there. Now looking at the Node 1 forward area, we see Koichi Wakata, the hero of Japan, and to highlight some of the stowage, on the starboard side here we have a CTB behind there, a jettison stowage bag with pre-trash gather items, and on the port side you see more CTBs. We've reported that these actually do cover some fire ports, and I think that's well known. The PFE is accessible on the port side there, but it takes a little while. So there you can see stowage pretty much along the port side. The green mesh bags you see here, here, and on either side, these are the U.S. segment crew members' athletic bags. We keep TVIS harnesses, tennis shoes, sweat towels, and things like that in here. And looking into the airlock, and a quick look around the hatch. Hatches are in very good shape. We do kind of inspect the hatches in a cursory fashion once a day or so, and do quick fly-throughs looking at hatches and excursions and anything that might be stuck in the fan filters. There's been a lot of work in pre-EVA tool gathering configuration, getting ready for 2JA, and the airlock in general is looking pretty good and pretty ready for the 2JA guys to get here.
Station Houston on to throw a follow-up for Frank on Toka.
The crew lock is full of tools, and many workstations are all configured and ready to go. Okay, now we'll move into the lab. And a quick look at the hatch seal around. And it's a little dark in here, but I think you can get an idea that the hatch is pretty unencumbered. And I will highlight the fact for the stowage guys that we do have some food deployed up here. We've been marking that in the database as Node 1 Starboard 1. And we turn this over similar to what we do in the service module here. Typically we eat dinner as a crew down here in Node 1, and a lot of this is rehydratable, and of course we're using our PWD for that. We're moving into the lab now, the US lab. And notably the RWS over here, and SSCs on either side of it, 8 on the left, 5 on the right. I'll get a quick look at those for those who might be interested in the robotics ops coming up. We've done several robotic operations in Expedition 19, and those worked out very well with this arrangement, using the SSC-5 as a procedure machine, and SSC-8 over here as a Doug machine. And looking back quickly at the hatch arrangement, see the hatch is clear. I think it's been reported several times that the quarter turn fasteners don't seem to work so well, especially if they're in an area that's accessed frequently. Several of them break in their catches, and as you can see, the PBA hatch over here, just over the PFE port, there's 4 of those fasteners are gone, and we have to be careful because opening the PBA port here against the Velcro inside would impede the PFE coming out. So that's just something for us to be mindful of. And we keep our TVIS cards up here just above the mech so that it's convenient for us to come in and get them read after TVIS exercise and in the mech and then put them back. For stowage guys, again, we've reported the location of the food warmer. I think we've sent a video down about that as well, but here again is where we keep the US food warmer. And the cupola robotic workstation. And as far as any other dynamic stowage goes, this is our pre-staging area for 2JA, the Lab Overhead 3 location. It's fairly packed right now with items ready for the 127 crew. It was a good location. I think it's worked out well for us. We could probably stuff a little bit more in there. Mostly CTBs, ECOCs, JSBs. As you can see, there's some food containers there all bundled up and ready to go. The Deck 3 area is still taken up by the Ag Cam, so our window constraints really don't have too much meaning to us. The Ag Cam window requirements are pretty much dictating the lab window activity, and actually the Ag Cam has had a problem. It hasn't worked quite yet, so we're not using that too much. A quick time to highlight the water wall in the starboard 2 area. Bob and Frank did a IFM here on the task list to try to get the water wall away from the SIR rack, and I think that's been fairly successful. Bungee cords are trying to keep that from impacting the wall. There's looks like there's one against there, but we'll fix that. And we do periodically reorient these to get them off the SIR rack. Now, concentrating for a time in the Lab 1 area, the TESS, which is now inhabited by Frank, one of the quieter places on the station. And the OGS rack, which we have reported several times before, this is a very busy area that was not supposed to have stowage on it, but of course we have the Altea on there. We do have an SSC here, which Frank uses office-wise, and if we have the BCAT payload set up, then we use it here. The OCA router is also situated here, and it's a bit of a mass of cabling. It is a trafficked area. The WHC is here, so we are looking for some alternate locations and suggesting a location in Columbus. We'd like not to put the BCAT back here. And a quick look at the hatch area. We've rigged a little seat track stud and a Velcro arrangement to keep this PBA hatch more or less closed. Tape wasn't working out so well for us, but again, the quarter turn fasteners have not worked too well for us there, and those have been taken off. Okay, continuing on, we're in node 2 now. I want to show the hatch here, looking aft from node 2. Again, we do kind of look at our hatch surfaces at least once a day during a fly-through, making sure that there's nothing on the fan inlets and hatches are clear and no drag-throughs. We do that pretty much once in the morning and more detail once at night. The mesh bag you see here is our dirty laundry staging area. Power strips down here on the starboard side, and the fan inlet here, which we find things in every once in a while. We do a lot of our PAO work here, so we have a video camera set up with a small computer desk we use for holding any scripting. The overhead hatch area, and we'll pay particular attention. We've reported this a couple of times too, but I think there's still been some questions. We have the emergency 1 book up here in the port area. We also have one of the monovacumeters from the Russian side. The one that's typically used at the central post for reporting differs from this one by about 1.5 millimeters. This one reading a little bit lower. And the other question I think was concerning stowage, and so in the Node 2 Deck 5 area, you can see we do have some stowage here. It's actually not very much. It's a fairly deep pit. We were using it for empty CTBs here, and we've used most of those for 2JA pre-pack. You will see a couple of bonus food containers that some of us keep deployed here just to grab snacks out of and things like that, rather than running down to the Russian segment. These are also marked in the database. We have 1 KBO down here, and those are in fairly short supply right now on station, so we're using that fairly exclusively for unusual things such as medical trash. And pivoting around, this is the workstation on the port side. Port crew quarters, port side workstation. This is something that I use, but also other crew members use just for supplies and grabbing stickies and pens and things like that. Power strips and charging below. And my work SSC. And the starboard side workstation, similar, kind of used by Koichi, but also by everybody. There's some temp stowed tools here that we use frequently. And looking overhead, other things that the crew preference items, as they're marked in the database, show us as deployed. Okay, continuing along here, Node 2 a Deck 5 storage area. Let's turn on a little bit of supplemental light, which the high-def cameras like. We do have the one big mid-deck stowage bag here, and again, a few CWCs. But there is obviously a lot of potential for stowage down here. We've reported that we're short of these bungees, and we really are. We need these for stowing in some of the big radial hatch areas, so I think we've got some of those coming up on 2JA. And another area that might be a little bit underutilized is the end cone area in the Node 2. We could stow a few more things here. Obviously, during a shuttle mission, it would be a little bit difficult. It is a thoroughfare, but it is an area that we could use, and we'd sometimes use for staging now. I will point out the 2 food containers. These are Russian food containers and are listed as discarded, but we have put the backup IFM tools, the IFM spare tools, into these 2 containers and organize them somewhat. And we actually do use these fairly frequently. Either because we have tasks simultaneously or because we just can't necessarily find something out of the regular IFM kit. We're trying to be fairly ginchy about putting things back when we're done with them, but there's just a lot of people up here using tools, which is what you expect with a 6-person crew. And the Node 2 forward hatch area, the flag area, we use this as a backdrop for PAO events again. Our venerable ship's bell. And the big CTB floating here is our Ziploc pantry, which we're into fairly frequently. Now a quick look at the overhead. Again, quite a bit of potential stowage area, and I know that for 17A that will be fairly heavily utilized. We have a little bit of a bungee net up there. This is where we typically dry our clothes, and some of our water reclamation is done up here too. The ventilation here is quite good, so we try to make use of that the best we can. But that should give you a pretty good idea of the stowage potential up there. And moving quickly into the gem, still the tidiest, largest, quietest module we have here. It's a pleasure to work in here anytime. And you can see fairly minimal stowage on the walls here. We'll pause for a quick moment here and show Bob's sleep station. Bob has been our displaced refugee without a sleep quarters of his own, but he's made very good use of this location. And we have the water wall behind there, which we've set up to give Bob some radiation protection, and of course there's a bit of a standoff to protect the shell heaters back there. And this is all empty space behind there in the forward 2 location. And looking up in the empty bay here, you see soft stowage, Japanese style, with the straps up there, which actually are working out very nicely. They're very easy to access, and we have no problem getting stowage from up here. Okay, and a quick look back at the hatch area, the gem port hatch area, very clean, very accessible. Moving port, SSC 14 over here, which is wireless and we like to use for conferences. It allows us to fly the camera around a little bit and to give people a fly through of the station during our video conferences, which is very nice. And we do have a little bit of stowage over here aft of the airlock, and potentially forward. I think crew members have slept at both of these locations before, and of course this is an area we use also for PAO and for some of our photo events, because we have the magnificent window behind there. And looking up into the JLP, I think you're probably aware that we do have one of our EMUs stowed in here. It makes things much easier to work in the airlock. And some of these bags are actually empty that we have up here. The 3.0 CTB here is empty. We had found food containers in that. We moved those to Columbus Forward 3 in an effort to try to consolidate all of our food. As the other EMU that was already stowed up here, the robot trainer, and Bob has also been using this as kind of a private area for cleaning or for hanging laundry and dressing. So that's JLP. Obviously, just right now, very loose stowage, but a lot of potential here. And you can see we have a couple of ECOCs here. I think these are mine and Gennadi's, just floating. And back down we go. I will make one note that
we're checking, Koichi. I don't think so, but we'll look into it.
Thanks, Jay.
we've had food stowed in so many different locations, including obscure panels in the FGB and as well as the FGB floor, Columbus Forward 3, here in the JPM, up in the JLP. And we worked pretty hard to try to consolidate that in, well, let's see, behind this panel, which is the aft 5 in GEM, there's actually quite a bit of food in 3.0 CTB containers. I believe we have about 50 containers in there. Still, some of those are Expedition 18 Russian food containers. And we're going to go into Columbus. Quick note that we have the WAP stored up here. And into Columbus, working module, and Dr. Thirsk is working hard today. And we'll first swivel around since we're talking about the hatches. And the Columbus port hatch ring, unencumbered, seals in good shape. See the ATU and a headset unit there. And we've reported in the past that the hard shell covers for the PFAs and PBEs in here, A, don't seem to fit, and B, don't seem to protect. And if anything, they might be a little bit more in the way than helpful. And we might be looking for some alternatives there for storage. I think probably the only thing you really need covered is that PBA there, and perhaps, or I'm sorry, the magic mask itself, and perhaps the top of the PBA. But otherwise, these are low trafficked areas and fairly safe. And with regard to stowage, The only thing that we would consider soft and dynamic stowage in here is probably the Columbus Forward 3 area. We reported that we've tried to consolidate our food rations here as much as possible. So right now, we are stored in the JPM, where I showed you before, and here in Columbus Forward 3, as well as the FGB, and no other locations besides deployed. We have had a beta cloth cover on here, but since we access this quite frequently, we've just used the bungee trap here, and that's worked for us quite well. As you can see, there's still quite a bit of Expedition 18 Russian food here. There's, on this date of June 18th, we still have about 17 or 18 containers here, and then a few more in JPM, so we're still not quite done burning down the Expedition 18 containers. But this area does serve as a very good staging area for food. It's easily accessed and easily reorganized as needed. And looking very quickly at the starboard end cone, some storage here beneath the power bus distribution and the caution and warning panel. Same issue with the PBA covers and the PFE covers here on the end cone. Not too helpful, but this is a very low trafficked area. This happens to be our recommended location for setting up BCAT again. Over here in this area, which again is very low traffic, and certainly nobody lives here, and I think that maintaining access to the emergency equipment would be quite simple. This also fulfills the BCAT's requirement to be oriented in the x-axis in general. So that is Columbus. Turn around and get a panoramic view of the module from here. There is a lot of science going on here now, so we actually have a lot of temp stow on the walls compared to usual. Usually the walls here are fairly clean. And we will notice that we have the large bag here stowed on the deck, which is from the ATV and ATV equipment. This is probably a very good staging area for large bags during STS-127, that we can get them straight in the door, relieve the mid-deck of their big stowage burden with the big bags, and just pre-stage them here without messing up the works too much in Columbus. Columbus remains a very functional module, even with the big stowage on the deck there. And I think that wraps up what people wanted to see with regard to hatchways and stowage, and of course our look in the Russian segment. And while we're coming through here, we'll just take another view of the Node 2 Deck 2 area. Again, a fairly cavernous volume with a very nice window view. We sometimes we take it for granted, but we often do our phone calling strung from the bungees overhead here and looking out the window below. It's a very nice view. And this, of course, is where the EarthCam payload is deployed. So stowage here would, of course, preclude that payload from being deployed here.